Mr. Roger, thanks for dropping by. A quick bit of kitchen time. I've always said if something isn't doing very well, it's no good sitting looking at it, and this coffee is just not doing very well, so I need to change something. So we'll drink it. Oh, now it's doing better. Right, same applies to this actual orchid. Obviously my subscriber list changes. Many subscribe and disappear and don't unsubscribe. And new subscribers come in. So the story that goes with this plant may not have been heard by some. And if you have heard it before, apologies. But this is, I'll say is, when in fact it was, because I think it's completely changed its name now. When I got it, it was Oncidium varicosum, and it was the variety rogersii, and clonal name Baldin. So quite a complex name, basically, but nonetheless, it was in a display in bloom, obviously, with a couple of others at the RHS show in London. When you put a display up at the RHS shows, there are strict rules that apply. Because the displays are actually judged, yeah? So once your display is complete, the judges come round, and from that point on, you're not allowed to touch your display until the end of the show. It doesn't matter how many days the show goes on for, it's fixed, because it was judged as is. So whatever award it may or may not have got has to stand, and that's what the public pay to see. So this was in a display. It was a 2-day show, and I'd gone up with a coach load of fellow orchid loonies from Bournemouth Orchid Society. It was one of the early coach trips I organised, just a few years ago now, and we were there on day 1 of a 2-day show. So I went up to the guy from Peru, so come all the way from Peru for a start, and said, I want to buy one of your plants in the display. Oh no, I can't sell you one of them, I'm not allowed. I said, I'm not listening, I want to buy one of those plants, you tell me how I can do it. And he said, well, we're not allowed to touch the displays till the end of the show. And I said, well, can I choose one, buy it now, and then organise getting it at the end of the show? He said, yes, I can do that. I'm not supposed to, so don't go shouting it around the hall, will you? I said, no, I can keep a secret. So anyway, we agreed a price and I bought the plant. But problem number 1, got my card out to pay for it, and he said, I'm sorry, I can't take cards, I can only take cash. Preferably in euros, but pounds will do. So I thought, right, I haven't got the money, what am I going to do? So I went up to my friend Lawrence Hobbs, who was also there, and I said, Lawrence, what? Because he speaks like that if he knows you well. What? If I give you my card, can you give me some money, which is incredibly cheeky because I want to use it to go and buy a plant on somebody else's stand? And he looked at me and he thought, well, for the cheek of it, yes, okay, what do you want? So I gave him my card, got the cash. I got some extra cash because I'd forgotten to take money with me and I wanted some lunch as well. So we now have the cash. So we go back to the guy from Peru and say, right, I'm going to pay for the plant. That's the one I want. And I'll arrange for what happens at the end of the show, and I'll come back and tell you what I've arranged. So I thought, right, I'm only here for 1 day, I'm not here on day 2, so somehow or other I've got to arrange for this plant to come out of that display at the end of the show. So we went up to Arthur on Burnham's, and I said, Arthur, what? I said, I bought a plant off the guy from Peru in the display, and he went, what? You've done what? I said, just keep your voice down, don't panic, it's all arranged, it's not coming out of the display or anything odd. But what I'd like to do is, at the end of the show, you'll be packing up, yeah? The guy's going to bring the plant over to you, for you to take back to Burnham's, yeah, because I'm not here, yeah? And then you post it to me as though it was one of your plants. Can we do that? And he said, if you pay for the postage now, yes. I can do that for you. So I said, okay, I'll arrange, the guy will bring the plant over to you, then you can take it back with yours, keeping it separate, package it up as though I'd bought it from Burnham's, post it back to me. So that was the arrangements I made to get this. So it was hard work. That took well over an hour to organise all that lot. Then I had some lunch. But anyway, it's gone downhill ever since. You can see the progression. Yeah? That's the bulb that was on it. It did have some older ones as well, but it wasn't a large plant. I think it only had 3, maybe 4 bulbs at the most, and the others were leafless. But that's the one that was in bloom. It then grew that one, yeah? Smaller, but it bloomed. It then grew that one, smaller again, but it bloomed. It then grew that one, smaller again, but it bloomed. So progressively the bulbs are getting smaller and smaller. And I've always said, if the plant's not working well, doing the same thing over and over again is not going to achieve a change, is it? So first thing I'm going to do is get it out and see what's going on in the pot. And I suspect not a lot. Right, quite a few of these roots are dead. That's what I was expecting. I wouldn't expect to see live roots on effectively what is 4 years ago's bulb. That's how I've had this a long time. It should be a lot bigger and better as a consequence, but it's not. So where I'd expect the healthiest roots to be is on the latest bulb, or possibly the latest 2, which sort of stands up. The roots that aren't too bad are here on the front of the rhizome. So I've got something to work with. The big decision is, do I leave that really large bulb on there? It's never going to grow a new growth. Decision not made yet. But I've got some roots to work with, not a lot. I will trim the dead ones off, that won't leave a lot. Things like this, there's no point in keeping something like that, that's long gone. But up this end we've got a good one there. It's got no growing tip, the growing tip's died back, but the root itself is okay and it is capable of branching. That one's okay. That one looks like it's either new and stopped growing, or... But we've got a little bit to work with, but not a lot. Front of the plant is where it's going to shoot out from, so we'll get the sheaths off, so that if it does start a new growth I can see what's going on. And the early little young roots won't get caught up in the sheath and start pointing upwards, because the last thing I want on this is aerial roots. Right, so that's what I've got. It's not good, but I've had worse and recovered worse. But that's what, quite honestly, this is what I was expecting, was not a good root system. And therein lies its fundamental problem. It's not producing a good root system with each progressive bulb. It's only producing a couple, which implies to me it doesn't like what it's in. Yeah? It's not growing strong. Old spikes, they just snap off once they die back. Which is good. Anyway, I'm going to give that a spray with hydrogen peroxide, which I'm going to have to top my little spray bottle up, so I won't bother filming that. And then I'll be back to deal with it. Doesn't like it being in a pot, does it? So you can tell where this is going, can't you? I'll be back. What about this then? Shall we mount this? So I can't see what I'm doing in the camera. Shall we mount you? Eh? Shall we put you on a piece of bark? Eh? We could put one paw out that side and one paw out the other side and put you nice and flat and tie you on. What do you think? He just woke up. Ugh. Come on then, down you get. I got work to do. Right, that's the camera all over the place now. I'll have to reset that. Sorry about wobbling that around, but I couldn't see what I was doing. The screen was tucked back. Right, somewhere about there, I think. That'll do. Right, I found a very odd shaped mount, very odd shaped, all skewed over sideways, but as soon as I saw it I thought that's actually just right for what I want, because what I want is for it to go up the mount. All this lower section of the plant, the bit I've got hold of, is not going to grow. It'd be highly unlikely to get a growth out of that part of the plant. So that can go right down the bottom of the mount, out of the way, leaving this bit, which is where it's highly likely to shoot out, halfway up the mount and plenty of room to expand. And if it's going to carry on only putting one growth a year out, it can stay on there for 2 or 3 years before I even need to worry. So that's why that particular mount has been chosen, and I am going to mount that way, not that way. Yeah, it naturally sits flat quite nicely, so that's how it's going to go, like that, and that will give me some good tying points around the rhizome as well, and then hopefully it will shoot out. Fingers crossed and all that. Right. Now, under normal circumstances, the moss goes on after the plant. This one's different because the only roots I've got are going to go under the rhizomes because they're quite short. If I don't put any moss on the bark, those roots won't have any, because once I put the thing flat on the bark, there'll be nowhere to be able to get the moss. So for once, the moss is going on first, and I don't normally do that. So we'll get a reasonable bed of moss on there, and then we'll tie it so it doesn't all fall off. Of course it would help if we had something to tie it on with. I was sure I brought that out. I'll be back. No, I'm not going mad, I did get it out, I just left it on the table and didn't bring it in the kitchen. Oh, right, it's not a large piece of wood. We're going to go round 3, maybe 4 times, so I don't need acres of the stuff. In fact, that should be more than enough. It's only a couple of inches each turn, so waste not, want not, although I have got stacks of this. Don't worry about wasting this. Right. We'll start off with a slip knot with a good end to it, because the end I've got hold of now, the end of the knot, is going to be what I have to tie onto when I've finished. So if that's too short, it makes life difficult down the line. You have nothing to get hold of. Right, so I'm going to start halfway up so that I can go down and up and still come back to the same point on the back, which I can't see because if I turn it over to see what I'm doing, all the moss is going to fall off. So we will guess somewhere about there is about the middle. Right, we'll go round once at the bottom and once near the top. That's the moss. Right, now I can hold that under the mount with my fingers while I get the plant in the position I want. As you can see, I haven't got much of a root system here. I've only got a couple, and if they're in the moss, they'll stay moist longer, they may branch, they may start growing again. And then I want this as low down on the mount as I can get it, with the lead growth pointing upwards, so whichever direction it comes out now, it's got somewhere to go. And then we'll come out from behind the mount, go round the rhizome once, and that's got the plant now. And then we'll go round again. Am I going to run out? I think I might run out. That's bad news, isn't it? Not on the plant. I've got the plant now. Those 2 turns are more than enough to hold the plant in place, but I still need to tie my moss on in places. Let me see if I can get away with just... I want to put some live moss on as well. I am going to need some more fishing line. That'll teach me to be tight, won't it? I just want to get a bit of moss down there because there is a root down there that might branch because it is a live one. So we'll just go round there and then we'll tie off, and then we'll get some more fishing line and come back and deal with the moss. Got only just enough left to tie, which is going to be difficult with wet hands, so we'll dry those. Right, so then somewhere down here should be our loose end. Come on, out you come. There we go. And then we've got something to tie against. So that's the plant held. I'm going to be going round again to hold the moss in place. So there'll be some more turns against the rhizome, but that's one lot. Now what I want to do is sort out some live moss. See if we can get that going over the top. And again, we'll get our fishing line tied on first. Are you going to come undone? Well, let me rephrase that. You are going to come undone. It's all the right words, not necessarily in the right order. Right, we'll get quite a bit. So I want this moss held in place so it'll stand the best chance of actually growing. If the moss is loose and floppy, it just tends to die back. If it's nice and firmly against the zombie moss, it tends to get going better. And then it's just a matter of not letting the whole thing get dry for any length of time. Or the moss will be the first thing to die, but you shouldn't use that as a sign of watering. Oh, my moss is dead, perhaps it's time to water. That's not a good idea. But if your moss is starting to look a bit jaded, chances are your plant's been dry a bit too long. Right, we'll have one there. And we can start at the bottom. Get this moss on. Right, I haven't got much live moss. I'm going to have to raid the forest soon. But it only needs a little bit. Quite honestly, if it does take and start to grow, it'll just take over the mount. You know, so you need to start really more than a whole coating. And then it'll fill in the gaps and grow up around the base of the plant and everything else. And it certainly sets the plants off nicely, having some nice green moss. I think that will do. Now all we've got to do is hold it in place. Right, dry hands please. And round we go. So we go round there. I'm going to go round there again. Make sure that moss is in. And we come up to the next section of moss, which is there. And there. And then we've only got the bit round the top to do. So if I go, I'm going to come down a bit through that gap there. That's got both of those bits. And then that'll have to do, because I need to be able to have enough left to tie on. Right, find somewhere to tie to. That'll do. You would bury yourself in there, wouldn't you? And while I'm here thinking about tying things, we'll get a knot going. Now I normally only go round once, but because I want the knot to stay still, I'm going to go round twice and pull, and that should stay locked then. Reason being, we're not having any of this no tag nonsense. New Year's resolution tags. So I'm just putting the old one on, back on. That'll do. I don't think I'd forget what it was, but I think you may have heard me say that before, and then come back 3 months later and think, what the hell was that plant? So we're not doing it this year. Any opportunity I get gets a tag. Even though it is upside down. Never mind. It's there. That's the important bit. Right, so there we go then. We've got our bottom bit of plant down here that's probably never going to grow, so it can just stay there looking as though the plant started from right down here anyway. And then we could potentially get a growth off of this bulb, but most likely we'll get a new growth off of this one. What would be absolutely wonderful would be to get 2. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it's probably got a better opportunity of doing that now than it had before, because it wasn't growing well in the pot. So we'll see what it does on the mount. So I'm just having a little tidy up here. Straggly ends, which just spoil the look basically. Right, so that's it. And if the plant does decide to go up the mount, it has a climbing habit. Hopefully, if it climbs in this direction, the roots can still get straight onto the mount. That is my theory, what I have. So there we go. This plant, with that full name, would probably be impossible to get again. So I don't want to lose it. Just the ordinary Oncidium varicosum turns up, but the rogersii bit I've only ever seen on this particular plant from this cellar at that show. I've never seen it anywhere else, which is so. And the fact that it's got my name in it as well. It's not why I got it. Anyway, there we go. First mount of 2020. Let's get on and grow now. We want the nice big new growth this time round. You've got all the help you're going to get. So we'll see what happens. Postings as and when appropriate.